a proactive approach, much like I suppose most of us do to healthcare, and that preventative is better than cure. And as a consequence, they've got a range of home test kits and associated supplements to help people take charge. So, Jonathan, will you please tell us all about that?
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for the introduction there, guys. Maya, thank you, Jane and Adele as well, and the whole NTOI team for setting up today's presentation. It's really a privilege for brands like ourselves to be showcased. I think we're a small industry in Ireland, and obviously we're a small company growing into the market. So it's a real privilege and pleasure to speak to nutritional therapists today. I'm also joined by Eilish O'Brien. Eilish is a nutritional therapist based in Clontarf. I don't know if you want to say hello, Eilish.
Yes, hello everybody. Hi John. Thank you.
Fantastic. So yeah, maybe just to give you guys a bit of background. Obviously, we've been around since 2022. The genesis of the company was very much my own cancer diagnosis. I was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia about 6 years ago. And obviously, as you guys know, and probably you have loved ones or even some of your clients that have had cancer diagnoses, it can be a massive sort of shock to the system. It feels like you've been hit by a ton of bricks. And I think, once this sort of dust settles, you start to sort of think about, why cancer? Why me? Why not cancer? Why me? But I think, part of the diagnosis has really sort of opened my mind up to the opportunities around natural health. I'd always been a big believer in natural health. My wife reminded me on our first date, which was probably about 22 years ago, that we'd spoken about gut health and probiotics. But I think, living in Ireland for 10 years and just really not getting enough sunlight, when I was diagnosed, my vitamin D level was through the floor. It was around 16 nanomoles per liter. And my type of leukemia is very linked to uh, chronic vitamin D deficiency. So that was the first interesting thing that sort of piqued my interest around testing. And at the time, I'd sort of really struggled to get tested and was sending blood to the UK and to Spain just to try and get a baseline of what my vitamin D level was. And I think maybe because of a frustration with the health system, I was looking for different creative opportunities or alternatives in the natural health space. So I'm still living with leukemia. I haven't been treated as yet, but really just trying to, optimize health through supplementation, through testing, through nutrition, through sleep optimization, and obviously exercise. So that's a little bit about me. I'll hand you guys over to Eilish for a little bit about herself, and then maybe we'll take a deep dive into some of the products that we have at Wild Atlantic.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, and hello to everybody. So I'm Eilish O'Brien, and I'm a fellow nutritional therapist. So I'm sure I know some of you here on the call today. And I have a lovely support role with Wild Atlantic Health, and I'm based in Dublin. So my role is to support the health shops, and I work doing product training, some sales and promotions and all that kind of thing, which is lovely because as NTs, I think we could just keep talking about nutrients and health. So it's a really nice role. And I think also nutritional therapists, we always have one nutrient that I think we favor above all others, or we have our little favorites. And for me, definitely vitamin D would be that one. And that's why I'm really happy to be here today to share what I believe kind of stands Wild Atlantic Health out from the crowd in terms of our vitamin D. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. I just want to check, guys, is our screen sharing with everyone or is it not?
No, can't see
No.
anything yet.
Okay. Let's just find it. Sorry about that.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
Oops. Okay, let's try and Okay, so maybe just to give you guys a little bit of background around the company and the brand. We're based near Kinsale in County Cork. And as I said, we've been going since around 2022. So I guess the ethos of the company is very much around health empowerment, putting health back into people's hands. And the way that we do that, obviously, is through testing to empower people to sort of baseline and benchmark what their vitamin D levels are. Inflammation, as you guys know as practitioners, is an excellent biomarker for inflammation in the body. So really, as a new brand, we sort of launched with a range of 3 different tests: the vitamin D test, and then 2 different omega tests. So an omega-3 essential test, as well as an omega-3 advanced test. And then obviously we've developed supplements as well. So, I think our approach is obviously very ethical. As you know, there are, a lot of imported brands in the Irish market, some exceptionally good omegas, and obviously we heard from Eskimo today, but we've got Manami, we've got Wiley's, we've got a number of top brands, in the Irish market. And I think as a local company, because we do the testing, we really had to develop products that were of a world-class standard in terms of ensuring that people would see a real improvement in their health. So yeah, really, we're probably now in about 80 stores, and we're probably supported by over 100 different practitioners. So we're very much a practitioner-first brand. The early formulations were developed with Dr. Neville Wilson, who's a functional medicine doctor in Kildare, who some of you may be familiar with. Neville was instrumental in bringing Manami originally into Ireland. And we also collaborated with Dr. Barbara Barrett, who has a PhD in holistic health. So they've really been instrumental in helping us to get the brand off the ground. We've also received tremendous support from different practitioners. The late Patricia Daly was a great advocate for our brand. Maeve Creven, who some of you might know from the Functional Medicine Conference. Dr. Richard Rocker as well has been an exceptional supporter of the company. So yeah, maybe just to kind of go into testing, and I know obviously as practitioners, you guys are well versed in different types of tests. Sorry, I'm just having a problem making it full screen. But we know in Ireland, I think on average at the end of summer, most women would have a vitamin D level in Ireland of around 60 nanomoles towards the end of summer, and that drops to around 40, 45 at the end of winter. So there is a chronic deficiency of vitamin D in Ireland, particularly amongst certain groups. Pregnant women, for example, anyone with a high body mass index probably has half the vitamin D levels as a normal person. We're also seeing the elderly, and we saw this during COVID, in the care homes, a very high percentage of people 70 plus probably have 4 times lower levels of vitamin D than younger people in their 20s. And obviously, with the changing complexion of Irish society as well, with the Black, Asian, Middle Eastern community, there's almost a 90% deficiency in terms of vitamin D. Eskimo alluded to omega, and obviously, there's been a little bit of research that's been done in Ireland on omega-3 levels. Typically, as you guys know, the sweet spot for omega-3 is between 8 and 12%, and that really measures the percentage of EPA and DHA in your red blood cell membranes, which change every 120 days in your body. So, huge differences from being at the 3% level, which a lot of people eating processed foods would be at. And we're seeing in Ireland, I think almost 50% of all calories consumed are now ultra-processed foods, which puts us, I think, 3rd behind Germany and the UK in terms of ultra-processed diet. So, I mean, we're literally fighting a war, I think, from these big food manufacturers. And I think it's so important that we, nutritional therapist brands start to really generate increased awareness around some of those risk factors. So I'm not going to get into too much detail on the test. I think we're going to dive more into the supplements today, but we do have 3 tests. We have the vitamin D test, the omega-3 essential, as I mentioned, which measures the omega-3 index, and then the omega-3 advanced test. Omega-3 Advanced does all 24 fatty acids and gives you all the ratios. Some really insightful information there, particularly around the omega-6/3 ratio, as well as your trans fat index. So I think when we launched, we thought that the Advanced would be too expensive, but it's probably our number one selling test. And I think overall across all tests, we've done around 2,000 tests. So it's just very interesting in the Irish market to see, particularly on omega-3, most people that are not eating fish or taking a supplement would have an omega-3 index between 3 and 4. We're seeing people who maybe sort of don't eat fish but take a supplement, maybe getting up to 5. But only 20% of people who take omega-3 supplements ever hit that 8 to 12 percentage that the Japanese seem to be able to get to. And obviously that's driven by their seafood diet. They also eat a lot of natto in their diets as well, which I think, obviously, as you guys know, is very high in K2. So that, I think, has fantastic effects in terms of the arteries as well. I think what makes us different from a lot of supplement companies, there's lots of claims that are made out there. I think with our testing, supplement and retesting, we are seeing fantastic results. We're seeing people double their vitamin D level between 4 to 6 weeks, which is quite incredible. And we're seeing people increase the omega-3 index from around 4 to 8%, once again, within 6 to 8 weeks. So this is just a little 1-month challenge we did using different social media influencers. But we have quite a significant data, which we're busy compiling just on, to be able to demonstrate the improvement that we're seeing in the market. We've worked with different laboratories as well on testing. Patrick Clark, who runs a laboratory up in Dublin, was a little bit skeptical about the product and the fact that it would really work. And he actually took it upon himself to actually test himself as well as the guy that heads up his lab, and had an amazing increase of 75% just taking the supplement for 5 days a week, compared to the guy who heads up the lab who was using a spray who only increased by 2 nanomoles. So, really fantastic results with the product, which is very exciting to see as an Irish company. And as you guys can appreciate, as an Irish brand, we're a small team, only 3 people, to try and compete against bigger brands like Manami, which are owned by Nestle, is a very, very challenging exercise. But I think we're getting there, and we're starting to see some fantastic results. So I'm going to hand over to Eilish to take you guys through vitamin D, and then following that, we'll jump onto Omega.
Great. And my own personal vitamin D levels back in when I tested first with you guys, I think it was around 2021, and my levels were pretty much on the floor. I think 24, 25 nanomils, and now they're at 152, and I try and keep them at around that, and I have to say I feel great. I think the sweet spot seems to be around 125. And in terms of, we talked about the deficiency there, but even sufficiency really is or insufficiency is probably, most people are probably insufficient. So we really need to get the numbers up. And I think that's what makes Wild Atlantic Health Vitamin D stand out, is that we do see the numbers move on. And that's what we all want as nutritional therapists. And I think it's lovely, it's a minefield out there when you're making up a protocol for a client and you're putting it together. And I suppose one of the first supplements is well, for me anyway, is always vitamin D, because it's part and parcel of every condition that we come across out there. And it's lovely then when you find a brand that you can really trust, that you can turn to, that when you're going to recommend this, that it's going to, do what it says on the bottle, and it's going to move the numbers. So just a few of the key areas that I would like to highlight today, just to show that how it stands out from the crowd. For me, anyway, is the synergistic effects of the Wild Atlantic Health Vitamin D, in that because it's with the D3, K2, and A, and I think the A really is a critical cofactor in this supplement. And what the vitamin A does is it allows the vitamin D to be absorbed into the nucleus of the cell. And what this does is it enables its genomic action. And I think it's where it really helps us to stand out. The K2 also is in the form of MK7, and we know that this is probably more easily absorbed by the body over the MK4. And the MK7 the K2, sorry, in our supplement is about 3 times higher than some of the leading competitors, so it's a great high amount. And there's been no compromise in the quality of our supplement, in any of the ingredients. Even the only extra in it is the organic extra virgin oil and olive oil. And this is a lovely piece, like a lovely little bit of fat that again is there to help the other ingredients for the absorption. And there's nothing else in it. It comes in a lovely micro encapsulated effect. So again, this is to help with the stability of the ingredients and the freshness. And then so it's a really complete fat soluble complex for optimal biological performance. So you can see all the elements there on the screen: the extra virgin oil for better bioavailability, the 3-dimensional microencapsulation technology. So really, in terms of quality and potency, I think it stands out from the crowd because of the synergistic effects. Now, I know we know about vitamin D and our immune system and bone health, but just to recap, or I suppose remind us as practitioners, I just want to highlight a couple of little bits of research that I came across recently, and one was highlighted by Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I'm sure you probably follow her, in terms of studies on dementia and Alzheimer's. And she highlighted a large scale cohort study of, I think there were 12,000 participants, and found that vitamin D supplementation was associated with 40% reduced risk of developing dementia. So that's huge. It's a great number. So we would have been more familiar with the other benefits of vitamin D. But now we know that it reduces neuroinflammation, it supports the amyloid beta clearance, and maintains synaptic function. So it's also vitamin D. Vitamin D sufficiency is linked to reduced risk of multiple sclerosis, depression, and respiratory tract infections. So it's just a reminder of the other roles that it plays besides just the immune system. Again, fertility, pregnancy, and postnatal health. Vitamin D supports ovulation, reproductive hormone regulation, and improves outcomes in IVF. In men, it's associated with better sperm motility and overall semen quality. And for pregnant women, it lowers the risk of preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, and low birth rate. It obviously also supports fetal skeletal development and immune programming. Breastfeeding mothers need more, and as we said, the older generation definitely need more. They seem to have not be able to synthesize it from UV rays into their skin. There seems to be a slowing down in that process as we age. So the aging population really need more. And then back to one of the things that we all know that vitamin D is good for is our bone health. And 500,000 people in Ireland actually suffer from osteoporosis and bone health conditions, which is really, really high. And we know as nutritional therapists, because we come across this all the time, and in health shops when I'm talking, all the customers are coming in and they're all prescribed Calci Chews. And I was pretty shocked when I realised that there's only 400 IU of vitamin D in a Calci Chew, and there's an absence of K2. And they think that, they were prescribed this, so it's going to help their bone health. But we know that K2 along with vitamin D is vital, because it's going to help to channel calcium into the bones and away from soft tissues like arteries, where it can build up and cause problems. And particularly for women, postmenopausal women, where cardiovascular events are they're at high risk of these. So for me, it's a no-brainer for that age profile as well. But really, there's nowhere in the population where it's not of benefit. I'm probably going on too much. So back to the basics of it. It really is, it's a complete fat soluble complex for optimal biological performance, I think really across the board for every age profile. Have I missed anything, Jonathan?
No, I think you covered most of the bases, Alicia. I think probably the uniqueness of the product is obviously the combination of the three fat solubles together. I think vitamin K2 is typically quite unstable, so we've sort of microencapsulated, as Alicia mentioned, in the organic extra virgin olive oil. I think that microencapsulation with a bit of that olive oil obviously helps to boost the bioavailability. And even people that have certain SNPs that might prohibit the uptake of vitamin D are seeing fantastic results. So we've had one or two practitioners who just have taken loads of different supplements and haven't seen an increase. But we're delighted to say that taking our product, they're seeing fantastic results, which is very encouraging.
Just before you move on from that, Jonathan, I'm going to, because we've only got a few minutes left, but I'm going to leap in with this question that Barbara has asked, because I think it's probably something that lots of people are thinking about, is the level of vitamin A in pregnancy, that the dose is quite high. So how would you reply to that?
That's based on a 2-capsule dose. So I think for pregnant moms, if you took, I think, a single capsule, I think it would get you to about the 750 level, which is permissible for pregnant moms. Obviously, there's a big push, particularly by the HSE in terms of vitamin A and the risks associated with that. Dr. Barbara Barrett, who works with us, would have a slightly different view on that, and that vitamin A is also needed for the health of the baby during pregnancy as well. So I think it's obviously a fine line and a balance, and I think each person needs to obviously do the research on that and make the best and most informed decision.
Great. And I'm just going to leap in with Katrina's question as well, because it's still relevant to this slide, which is, are there any contraindications with regard to the level of K2 that you have in this product?
There's no contraindications on K2. There's actually no upper limits on K2. Obviously, K2 was the last of the vitamins that was sort of discovered by Weston Price. I think, if you look at the Maastricht study on K2, it recommends a 300 mcg UG level, which is what we've got in the product. So I think once again, we've really tried not to compromise on anything. K2 is probably the most expensive ingredient in the product. It would have been very easy for us to equalize with Viridian at 100, but we really wanted something that, I think generates the best results. There is pressure from Food Safety Authority and other organizations to try and push the 3,000. We were 4,000 IUs initially. We had to change it to 3,000 IUs. So there is pressure, downward pressure on brands, but we've basically included another 1,000 IUs in our omega-3, just if people want to take the higher vitamin D level. Do we have time to jump into omega, guys, for a couple of minutes?
Sure. Yeah, a couple of minutes, yeah.
Great stuff. I think Eskimo gave you guys a fantastic overview on omegas, so I'm not going to go too much into the detail of the health benefits. Suffice to say that a 1% increase in the omega-3 index is the equivalent of giving up smoking. And based on a lot of the research that Dr. Bill Harris has done, very interesting to see that even someone who does smoke, who has a high omega-3 index, has the same longevity and lifespan as someone who doesn't smoke but has a very low omega-3 index. So as I was saying earlier, only 20% of people who take omega-3 actually get to the 8 to 12% difference. So I think, Michael was talking about the triglyceride form. I think, for your audience, there's the natural triglyceride, there's the ethyl ester, which Wiley's is in, and that obviously has ethanol to sort of super concentrate the product. There's a third distinction in omegas, and that's the R-triglyceride form, which ours is in. There's only probably 2 products in the world that are in this form. That's ourselves and WHC, which is one of the best omega-3 brands in the world. Obviously, incredibly bioavailable. We like to kind of think of the product as more of a multi-omega, in that we've actually also included additional ingredients. We also have the third marine omega, DPA, so very high levels of EPA at 800, DHA at 600, and then the DPA at 80. DPA basically acts as a reservoir for the other 2 in your body. So if someone is short of EPA, the DPA will convert to EPA, some sort of DHA. The same process takes place. As I said, we've increased the amounts of vitamin D, so up to over 1,000 IUs. We've also included astaxanthin, which is a very potent antioxidant with a number of different health benefits. And the phosphatidylcholine helps to take the DHA across the blood-brain barrier, obviously being in phospholipid form. So, we are, as I said, we're seeing great results with the product. Some other products are in liquid. We think there's concerns with liquids because liquids oxidize as soon as you open the bottle. So, in order to keep the product with the lower TOTOX level as possible, and ours on manufacture is about 3, and we try to keep it under 5. But I think the astaxanthin and the vitamin D as antioxidants are very good in terms of preserving the integrity of the omega-3s, which tend to be quite fragile. So, yeah, I won't go into too much more detail. Suffice to say, the products are being used or being sold through Pure Natural. So, people can order them there. If practitioners would like to sign up on our website, they're welcome to do that as well. At wildatlantichealth.com, there's a 30% discount. Once you sign up, we send you a practitioner code, which you can use, and we'd be delighted to answer any questions any of you may have.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And
Pleasure.
Ailish, that's great. Really, that sounds amazing. And it's fabulous to know that you are available on Pure Natural, which is a nice handy place to get everything in one go. But that's a great discount you're offering too. So thank you very much. Does anybody else have any final questions for them? Oh, Anna Maria asks, what is your website? It's wildatlantichealth.com. Yeah. So
All right. AARTHA.IE. I'll type it here.
oh, she sent there, Grant. Right. And yeah, sorry, Linda, I misread your question, but she's just typed that in there now, the answer, the website you were looking for. Anybody else, any other questions? Oh, not far. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining today, and we hope that you've found that valuable. Thank you to our presenters for coming. Again, I personally think that's so interesting and really great to see what's going on our doorstep, that we can get really easy access to some awesome products, and the knowledge behind them, which is even better. When sometimes if you go into a health shop, you don't necessarily get the right information. So it's really great to have access to the people who actually can give you that and the research behind it, and the uses of all these great things. If you have any particular feedback about today's webinar, then please contact us, info@nti.ie about that. And equally, if you have, any homegrown health heroes that are offering, products across the health industry, that you would like to get an opportunity to support through this webinar series, then please do let us know. Again, on info@nti.ie. We're creating a list of these people and reaching out, to try and pull them together for you guys. So happy to have contacts wherever you've got them. just please send us that information. So again, thank you very much to our presenters. Thank you to all for listening, and have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.